Survival horror as a medium in gaming is a very strange thing. You can obviously compare it to the horror genre in film in the sense that it is such a niche type of experience, and yet the people who are fans of it are mildly obsessed with it. You might even say more than mildly obsessed with it. They crave more and more of the sensation of being terrified. But horror in gaming is something different. The dread of finally opening a locked door, or the white-knuckle, blood-curdling sounds of something just outside of the darkness that they can't see, inching closer and closer to them, is something that horror game enthusiasts crave. It's an easy difference to spot in a movie. You are just a visitor to the horror, a passenger on a ride that you only think you can smell the blood, or put your suspension of belief away just long enough for the track to pass through the next door on the carnival of horrors. As someone who enjoys horror movies, I can say that the relationship I have with horror video games is completely separate from the film medium. There is a strange warmth that comes with these horror experiences. Though what I am seeing and experiencing through the controller and on the screen is what nightmares can be made of, I can't deny this longing to sometimes live in them, to be in their world more than any other. There are horror games that have a more emotional resonance with me. Silent Hill 2, my beautiful, sweet, sad little angel. But there is almost no game in history that I have more nostalgia for and love than the remake of Resident Evil. This is what the remake means to me. Growing up in the 90s was an exciting time as someone who played video games. I was too young to play a lot of the most popular games, such as like Doom, Mortal Kombat, some other ones. But the era had plenty of interesting and experimental games at the time in the adventure genre, but for now I will focus on just one. I grew up on the Super Nintendo and N64, but my parents had a modestly built PC at the time, and like everybody else, we had missed. I must have been 6. There was almost zero chance in hell that I could ever beat that game with its borderline nonsensical puzzle solutions, and honestly, after a certain amount of time playing it, I almost didn't even care. I would wander aimlessly through the empty, beautifully depicted worlds and hear the sounds of wind blowing out of my speakers, the musical chimes of metallic clangs off in the distance of an underground bunker, and the haunting feeling of knowing that people used to be here, but aren't anymore, used to enrapture my imagination as a kid. The top of the tower on the main island will always feel like home to me. The graphics at the time were revolutionary, mixing FMV with pre-rendered environments that gave the world a real-life aesthetic that at the time was just simply unparalleled. Dense forests, abandoned factories, lifeless libraries, and an observatory that let me see the stars filled my little brain with endless possibilities. I didn't even really care about anything at that age, and blissfully experiencing the mysteries do you get it? 'Cause it's called myths, made even the cares of a 6-year-old wistfully fade away. The games that I was used to playing were games like Mario, games like Zelda, Super Metroid. Those were all very fun games with worlds that felt like they were alive, Super Metroid especially. But there was no game on the market that felt and looked quite like Myst. It was a world that it felt like you were really exploring, that you were really taking part in. As the years progressed and I got older and older, I was steadily allowed to play more types of games. I think my parents were relatively lenient on what I could play as long as it wasn't mature rated. M-rated games were off limits. I remember Christmas morning popping in Shadows of the Empire for the first time and seeing that huge scrolling logo smack upon the screen, and my mom turned to my dad and said, "Wow, look at this." It must have been around this time that my uncle showed my mom the original Resident Evil. My uncle would come over very frequently, bringing his PlayStation 1 with him and his buttload of games. I specifically remember my mom telling me to go upstairs one night because he was going to show my mom Resident Evil. And I asked, why can't I stay and watch it? And she said, because it's a horror game and I don't want you to get scared. This blew my mind. A game that was intended to scare you? The concept was so alien and so foreign to me, that moment has stuck with me ever since. The next morning, when I woke up, I asked my mom how it was, and she said, yeah, it was pretty scary. I was so intrigued, I needed to see more and I needed to know more. I asked my uncle, but even he said, you're too young, it's too scary for you. Fast forward to a couple years later, midsummer, in between school years. I'm opening a copy of Nintendo Power and I look inside the magazine and I see an image from the remake of Resident Evil on the Gamecube. Pre-rendered, beautiful graphics of a mansion lit in lightning, and I was hooked. I looked over to my mom and said, I need to play this game. There was obviously concern with her reaction because it was mature rated and she knew it. She remembered what she saw when my uncle showed her the original. But I was older, and with a little bit of convincing and a little bit of puppy dog eyes, she came to the conclusion that you were just shooting zombies, so she believed that it was okay. My dad was pretty against the idea of letting me own a mature rated game, but my mom was able to convince him to take me to GameStop and buy it. I remember the day like it was yesterday.
Welcome to GameStop. How can I help you? Just so you know, this game is rated M for mature, for blood, gore, anxiety in high school, and existential dread in your adult life.
Yeah, whatever. I even still have the receipt from that GameStop that day. When I came home that night and turned the game on for the first time, I don't think I had any idea what was in store for me. As far as I knew, looking back, that was the start of a whole new kind of world for me.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Jill, and myself. We don't know where Barry is.
Now, in case you aren't aware of what this game actually is, then let me give you the briefest of rundowns. A string of murders in the Arklay Mountains in the outskirts of Raccoon City have led to the dispatch of Bravo Team from the STARS team. They go silent and Alpha Team is sent to investigate. After harrowing encounter with the local wildlife, they escape into a mansion for safety and are thrust into unraveling the mystery of the deaths and the secrets that lie deep within the walls of the mansion. Now here's where I feel like I need to make a small disclaimer. I don't find Resident Evil Remake, or most any of the Resident Evil games, except for Resident Evil 2 Remake, to be actually scary. Save for the first night that I actually played the game. It was midnight, me and my brother weren't supposed to be up playing this game, but here we were, and we walked into this room right here. We both yelped and turned the console off. I specifically remember my brother going, No, turn this off, please. And I said, yeah, I think you might be right. As I played through Remake, I felt like an adult at the age of 12. I was experiencing a world that was previously gated off from me, seeing a side of gaming that had, at a point, only been an imagination. With every bullet I fired, I felt more in line with the feeling of growing up. With every groan and moan of a zombie, I shot away at my youth with the exuberance that only a child could be happy of. Its cryptic puzzles once again tapped into my imagination, except this time, unlike the adventure games of my youth, I could actually fire the synapses in my brain to solve them. The game is drenched in so much mystery your first time through, that each story beat feels earned. It feels deserved because you managed to evolve the story. You figure out the mystery. You conquer the horrors of the mansion. You conquer your fears. And you live to tell about it. What I believe to be Resident Evil's strongest suit is its ambience. There is no game on the market that quite has the specific type of feel that Resident Evil Remake does. And I think despite all the horror, the zombies, the jump scares, I think I could sum up Resident Evil's vibe with this one clip right here. I think this clip perfectly sums up the type of vibe that the game tries to present to you. A looming, creeping sort of dread that permeates from the second that you take control until just about the end of the game. Even though the Resident Evil series is often associated with being just a jump scare fest. What? No, I'm not gonna jump scare you. I think there is no game in the series that defies this notion than the remake. Most of the time the horror is so subdued that it almost borders on a psychological horror game. And the camera angles presented make it feel like someone is out there just beyond the door, the window, the bushes, watching you. And for 12-year-old me, I could simply just not get enough of it. It was almost everything I had ever dreamed of when my imagination looking at the game for the first time. When I said earlier in the video that horror games are often the types of experiences and worlds that I wish to live in more than any other, it all stems from these camera angles, these ambient shots. These are Resident Evil as far as I'm concerned. But astonishingly, at the same time, it also creates a warm, cozy feeling, such as the save rooms in any point of the game. Whenever I play Resident Evil and I encounter any of these save rooms, it always makes me think of being just a little kid again, playing in the backyard with my cousin, pretending that we were exploring huge, vast areas that only our imaginations could hold. The warm, dim light of the lantern, the soft, calming music brought me to a headspace that not even the most calming music of the Silent Hill games or any other game really that I can think of can bring me back to. It's almost like a warm embrace hearing this music, and it was even more so when I was a kid playing it for the first time all those years ago. So how am I going to be able to explain exactly what Resident Evil means to me? I can't. As the years went on and people in my life have came and went, I've gone through so many iterations of myself like many have before me. But Resident Evil has still always been there. Like an old friend who you keep in contact with, the memories that I have with this game will never leave. The warm summer nights of wandering aimlessly through the mansion trying to figure out where the last fucking Modisc was. The hours and hours I would listen to Roman P by Psychic TV while playing the game in the bright, air-conditioned summer mornings when my mom drove my brother to morning art camps. My friend jump-scaring me the first night I played the game. Resident Evil as a franchise, but more importantly as a game, has brought so much to my childhood and in turn, my older life. The truth is, I can't really tell you what Resident Evil means to me because in a way, it's a part of me. Thanks for watching. Resident Evil on the Gamecube is comforting to me. Why did I write? This is the worst written sentence I've ever done in my life. Resident Evil on the Gamecube is comforting to me in a way that I wish I could describe better than warm. It feels like home.